Today we've got our old school motorcycle mechanic, Andy, the expert, especially when it comes to carburetors, because this video is all about the basics of tuning a carburetor and how a carburetor works. That's what we're going to dive into on this CT70 to use as the bike for our example. Every carburetor is a little different, so there's going to be some differences, but this is a great way to get introduced to the basics of how you mess around with a carburetor. Now, Andy, before we dive into this, it is worth mentioning that if you have an old school motorcycle or even a newer bike that's having some issues running, there are a few other basic things you can check before you pull this apart.
Very much so. Kind of mess with the bike. Oh, it's got to be the carburetor's bad. Well, no, we always make sure your ignition is good first, and you tune from there.
And the best way to do that is you can pull the spark plug, you can, once it's out of the motor, reattach it to the wire, ground it on something, and make sure that you're actually seeing spark from that spark plug. So that's a great way to check that. Another good thing to check is what's leading to
Air
your
filter.
carburetor.
That's the best tuning. Seen a lot of guys just tune carburetors and not think about anything else in line that follows or is before, but the air filter is crucial for tuning because you're going to tune whatever your air filter is in there, and you always want to tune to a new filter.
Yeah, so if your filter is doubling as a rat's nest, that might be your issue.
Which we know so on these vintage bikes. There's
Definitely
always a rat's nest or two.
Yeah, so those are a couple basic things that you could check out before diving into the carb.
You bet.
And if you're just doing maintenance on a bike that was running well in the past, you probably aren't going to have to rejet the carb. You're probably going to have to take it apart and clean it. So first things first, let's go ahead and pull this carb off of this bike, and we can look at all the different parts and pieces and some regular maintenance items on it. So now, Andy, we've got the carburetor separated for the most part from the bike. We're leaving these fuel lines on because we don't want to have to cut them, make them shorter. They're pretty nice and happy on this carb. For what we're going to do to this today, we can leave the carb hooked up because we'll get pretty quickly here access to everything internally. Now, this is a very simple carburetor setup, but this side of the carb goes to the air filter. This other side of the carb goes to the intake side of the motor. And then on the top, what slides in here is the slide, aptly named.
Throttle slide.
Yeah, so this is the slide when you actually pull the throttle here. You want to give the throttle a twist. We could show the people what this does. So when you twist the throttle, this slide moves up, and that's what actually opens up the carb to let more air flow through it. So that's kind of a very basic operation. And then this needle actually plugs one of the jets.
It's the main jet needle, and this jet is also adjustable, which we will show you. There's clips in here. This is part of tuning to more so for the bottom end of the carburetor. The pilot jet, the needle, the main jet. Those are the three main characters.
As the slide moves up, it lets more air in, and as the needle goes up with it, that needle moves out of the jet.
Atomized fuel right on through.
And allows more fuel, yep.
You can see how fat this is at this end and how fat it is at this end. Okay, it's a little smaller than the back, obviously, but this is called squish in a carburetor. And what this is you'll get terminal velocity running through here. That's what brings all that fuel up out of the float bowl. The air rushing through, whether it be on idle or wide open. Obviously, wide open is going to really bring a lot of rush of air through there, so it brings that much fuel.
That vacuum that's created as air is getting pulled through this carb is what sucks fuel up through the jets like straws.
That is what's all metered. So the metering part is your main jet, your pilot jet, and your needle on your slide.
Yeah.
Those are your three tuning principles as far as the carburetor on this bike is concerned. Very simple.
And this particular bike has the petcock built into the side of the carb itself. Some bikes, a lot of bikes have it.
And this is my point exactly, Case, that we can take this carb apart. Okay, here it is. Float's still on, upside down. Case had drained it before we actually started this procedure. You can see there's a little bit of fuel left in it, but not much.
Yeah.
But as soon as you turn this on, you'll see how that leaks out of the fuel
starts to
there.
flow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of this bike like
and
this.
that makes this bike a little unusual because I would say most older bikes have this valve built into the tank.
Yes.
Instead.
Yes.
This one is built in the carb.
This is what you don't get to squeeze on this bike is no gas tank because it's under the seat. So this here main jet, the jet emulsion tube that this main jet is in, and then this is your pilot jet. Very, very, very tiny. We can measure these and set them out.
And it's going to be difficult to see on camera, but in the center of both of these is a hole. So if you have a motorcycle that's been sitting for a long time and you see that the bowl of the carburetor is all gunked up, it's nasty, it's not this shade, you can tell that this one's pretty clean because it's just metal.
It's been running.
If it's discolored, then that's a carb that's probably been sitting for a while, and the hole in either or both of these jets could be clogged up.
And that's what makes them not run.
So that's when you would want to take some kind of reaming tool and ream out those jets. A lot of carburetors, that's all they're going to need is that and some fresh seals. This particular carb we are going to have to rejet. And then one last thing that we'll talk about as far as the function of these carburetors is this float. So as the bowl starts to fill up with fuel, the float literally floats upward, and that closes off.
That shuts the fuel off.
The opening for fuel to flow into the carb, and then as the bowl gets low, it opens back up so that bowl can kind of regulate how much fuel is in there. This is also kind of cool. You can actually see the choke, the operation of the choke on this bike.
When it's running, this will actually flap in there like that. And that's actually full choke. It'll stall immediately. Yeah, it'll stall immediately. But it's a great way to start it. And then Honda has a little flapper in there until you shut it back off and get your full gulp of air running through there.
And the idea is if you restrict the opening in the carburetor, then there's going to be that much more vacuum trying to suck the fuel through.
Yes, it'll still suck the fuel through, but there's no air going with it. It is a really, really rich mixture is what it is.
Exactly. So to get the bike running initially, you're kind of closing off the air so that it's a richer mixture
Exactly.
just to get it
You're doubling your fuel when you hit a choke. This is also the fourth tuning principle is a mixture screw. And mixture screws either run in front of the throttle slide or behind the throttle slide. This one is behind. Behind the throttle slide means that it's a mixture screw for air. So when you turn this out, you're increasing your air. It's usually different if that mixture screw is on the front because now you're tuning fuel.
So you said anything before the slide in the carburetor, anything before the slide is typically air
mixture, yep.
And
anything after that's motor side of the carburetor, that would be a fuel mixture screw. This is called an air mixture screw. A fuel mixture screw would be up here in the front if that's the way that was. But
so those are some slight adjustments that you can make.
Mainly in idle.
Yeah, and that's short of rejetting.
Yes.
So there's adjustments that you can make there.
Yep.
There's adjustments, like you said, that you can make in the slide.
Yep.
And the needle that goes with it. And then this carburetor also has this screw right here for the idle.
Idle speed is what that is. Idle speed, idle mixture. You set your idle speed up so it doesn't stall. You tune your mixture to your best. You know, it ranges in about a quarter turn from a turn and a half out is kind of your baseline setting on that screw. Yeah. And then you tune plus or minus of that to make it run its smoothest, and then you bring this idle back down because it usually makes it run a little faster to a nice little 700, 600 RPM idle.
So those are some things that if you're curious about, you can trial and error a little bit, play around with some of those settings to try and figure out what's going to make the bike run the happiest. And again, each carb is going to be different. The adjustments and where they are and how the carb is structured and engineered is going to be different on different bikes. But this is a very basic carburetor that gives you a really good idea of the principles of how this is meant to work.
And actually, this is a real great example. When Case and I built this bike, it was summertime. It was hot out. So that's what we were actually tuning the carb for then. Now here we are in November, cooler, windier. We need more fuel. So it's not happy now at riding out on the street or a little rat-a-tat-tat-tat.
To your point too, there's still tons of bikes out there that are carbureted, and there are some riders that are either getting into riding with an older bike, or maybe they've had some newer bikes and they want to buy something older, but the carburetor is a little bit of a mystery box to them. So that's why I wanted to do this video where we talked through some of the basics of these carbs. Because Andy has so much knowledge, I think it makes sense to share some of that with people that at least want to understand the essentials before they dive into their own carburetor and figure out the specifics of it. So that is, in general, how these things are engineered. And I also want to say a quick thanks to Scott and the team over at Rider Justice, because if you're riding frequently, every now and then, things happen, and Scott is the guy to talk to if you need legal representation.
He's a motorcycle lawyer.
Yeah, and Andy has met him several times.
He's a great
Scott
man.
Is not only a lawyer, but he's a huge motorcycle enthusiast as well, which we appreciate. And he works with people all over the country. So if you need legal representation, check them out using the link in the description below. Now, as for Andy and I, we're going to keep diving into this particular carb and try to refine the tuning on this motorcycle. I don't want to drag people along for that whole process, but I will try and shoot a little video clip once we have this running that we can drop into this video as well to include. But yeah, so these are awesome pieces of technology. If you're looking at potentially buying a bike and maybe buying a bike that's carbureted and you're watching this video thinking, do I want to get into that? 100% should, because this is a great piece of technology to understand and a really cool thing to mess around with. And we highly recommend it. I think it's actually a lot of fun tweaking these carbs and getting them to work really well. So that's all for this video, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
How's it riding after some adjustment?
Very nice. Got a little bottom end stumble. That's perfect, bud. That's just what we want.
Nice. That sounds great.
Yeah. And it rips all the way up. It doesn't stumble anywhere through it. So
our couple little adjustments there made a difference.
very much so. What I do want to do though, well, I got you there with the camera. I'm gonna adjust the clip on this, and I'll show the folks on camera what this clip is about and how to tune that and what that does for the needle. But that's the only other thing I want to tune on this, because this usually works the bottom end.
So you can adjust how deep into the carb.
Yes.
That
so
needle is.
I'm feeling like it's a little rich on the bottom end, a little bit of a stumble, and it feels like it's a little fat because leaning it out with the mixture screw didn't make it fully happy. So what I'm going to do,
Move the clip up.
yes, one notch, or we're dropping the needle one clip is what they would call on that. So now, instead of it being in the middle, there's 5 clips. Middle is center. And the reason that Honda likes them mounted in the center, because then you got plus or minus rich.
You got
and
options.
I'm a little bit rich right now, but I also think too that it'll really help because we haven't got snow yet. So as soon as the snow flies, that changes everything on this, and I think it'll be a lot happier, where you might even make that adjustment yourself to go back to the middle clip if it feels like it's running lean. So we just shove that all in there, right back in there.
Put it back together, back in the carb.
Yep.
See how she runs.
So that needle adjustment we just made, now we got to do our mixture again. because we just changed that. So we're going to bring our idle up a little.
And so you twist until the point where it speeds up the idle?
Yes.
And then back off?
Yeah. And then go the other way. So basically find your center of sweet spot. That might be it right there. Oh yeah.
Just like that, we went from a bike that was not happy at all
To very happy.
to very happy. So that's all it takes. If you're at all intimidated by carburetors, it is possible with just a little bit of work to make them very happy. And it's pretty rewarding. And it helps a lot having a guy like Andy around.